Hey guys, it's Haley and welcome to another bookish video. Today is gonna be my June wrap up, but before we get into the books, I just want to thank the sponsor of today's video, which is Skillshare. I have loved working with Skillshare in the past, so let me go ahead and tell you a bit about them. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for anyone who loves learning and wants to explore their creativity, learn new skills, and invest in themselves for personal growth. Have a specific skill you're trying to learn? Skillshare is the perfect place to start. From photography and illustration to graphic design, freelancing, and more, you can find classes that will match your goals and interests. Here you can see that I have bookmarked a class on marketing. Recently, I have been loving taking their marketing master classes. This is my favorite one. My favorite class that I've been taking lately is Marketing for Therapists and Coaches, How to Find Clients by Giorgio Aprile. And honestly, it is so nice to just get a master class with all of the information right there instead of having to go to so many different avenues. And it's a pretty quick course as well. It's helped me so much with building my private practice. So if you have a skill or something that you've been wanting to learn, Skillshare is a great place to just start it, try it out. And you can become a member today by clicking my link down below. The first 100 people to click my link will get their first month free on Skillshare, totally free. So you can try out any class that you've been interested in. And thank you so much again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Now let's go ahead and get into my June wrap up. First of all, we're gonna start with stats as always. In my last wrap up, I asked you guys if you wanted me to keep doing stats, and it was literally half and half. Half the people were like, I skip right past them, literally don't care. The other half of the people were like, I will die and cry if you don't give me your stats. So I am doing a compromise. I'm only gonna give you the StoryGraph generated stats. I'm not gonna do any of my own stuff. So it's like a compromise, okay? So for some brief stats, during the month of June, I read 13 books, and that is a total of 4,084 pages. Here is the mood breakdown. As you can see, a lot of tense, dark, and mysterious reads, as always. About a third of the books that I read were fast-paced, and the other 2/3 were medium-paced. I did read one book that was above 500 pages, a few novellas that were under 300 pages, but the majority, as always, were in that 300 to 500 page range. I did read one nonfiction book this month, but the rest were fiction. Here is the genre breakdown. As you can see, mostly thrillers, mostly LGBT, a little bit of romance. That is pretty typical for me. And over all of the 13 reviews that I posted this month, I had an average rating of 3.92, which I think is really good. I didn't read as many books as I normally do, but that is a really high average rating. Like, that is almost a 4. Think about it. Like, if you went on Goodreads to look at a book and the average rating was 3.92, immediately yes. However, I did have 2 1-star reads this month. Stay tuned, it'll even out with the 5 stars. I also had a 2.5 star and a 3.5 star book. I had a 4-star, 2 4.5 stars, and 6 5-star books. Can you believe? I had such a good reading month for the most part. And here's a breakdown of how I read these books throughout the month. As you can see, I didn't read anything until the 6th because it was my birthday the first week of June, so I was running around doing fun things. Then I read a lot throughout the middle of the month, and it tapered out at the end of the month when Stranger Things became my entire life. That's it for stats. Let's go ahead and jump into the books. As always, I'm gonna start with my lowest rated book and move up along the way to my highest rated favorite book of the month. So let's start out with the 1-star reads that I read in June. The first one you guys probably already know about, and it is a real disappointment because this was one of my most anticipated books of 2022. That was A Familiar Stranger by A.R. Torre. Y'all know I love A.R. Torre. I'm such an A.R. Torre stan. The Girl in 6E series is probably my favorite series of all time, but this one just did not hit for me. It was totally boring. The twist was whack. It was just so basic and weird and tired. I don't know. There was just nothing redeeming about it, so I had to give it a 1 star. It's a domestic thriller that follows this woman who writes obituaries, and she has a really boring life. She doesn't like her life, so she decides that she's just gonna take on the lives of the people that she writes obituaries about when she meets new people. It's kind of a weird concept, but she does this and she starts an affair with a man who thinks she's literally this woman who's dead, and all the while her husband is having an affair as well, and there's something deeper going on, but honestly it's not that interesting. I'm just so done with domestic thrillers that are all about affairs. Like, that is not high stakes enough for me. I'm gonna need some murder going on. I thought it was really poorly written. I didn't identify with any of the characters, and yeah, this one you can skip. The other 1-star read that I had this month was A Roll of the Dice by Matt Shaw, and when I hauled this, everyone was freaking out. Y'all were demanding that I read it immediately and give you guys a review. So many people in the comments were saying they wanted to buy it.
Girl, don't.
Don't. I feel so bad if any of you bought this book from my haul.
Because it's horrid.
It's actually abysmal. I love the extreme horror genre. I will start by saying that. And I really wanted to try out Matt Shaw because apparently he's like the extreme horror king of the UK. And he writes a lot of great extreme horror. So I was like, okay, sure, yeah, I'll give him a try. And the whole reason that drew me to this book, if you missed my haul, was that it's written in a really interesting way where it's like choose your own adventure. And this guy, he decides his whole life, like every decision that he makes is decided by a roll of dice. He literally rolls the dice to decide everything in his life. Kind of dangerous, kind of scary, definitely could not be me, but that's what he does. And we actually roll for him. The reader rolls dice, and that is how we decide how the book ends. And you keep losing if you die at the end, and then you have to like go back to the beginning, start over, roll the dice, and try to find a way where we make it to the end of the story. Or you can cheat and just look at the key in the back and make it to the end of the story and go through all the different routes and see all the different ways that he could die. But I'm sorry, this was not extreme horror to me. I was waiting for the gore and the torture and the blood and the death, and honestly, it didn't serve me anything. Like, I thought a Karen Slaughter book or a Jennifer Hillier book is way more graphic than this. So the fact that it's branded as extreme horror really pissed me off because it's just not what I got. I feel like Matt Shaw maybe sways to the offensive side of extreme horror, like it's supposed to horrify you because our main character was literally just a misogynistic, racist asshole. Like, I could not believe the things that I was reading in this book, and like maybe that's what makes it extreme, but to me, like,
that's just shitty.
Like, who wants to read that? Not me. And the R word was used in this book, and sex workers were referred to as prostitutes in this book. I just did not like it. It came across as like incel vibes, if I'm being totally honest. Like, it seems like it was written by an incel man that just like wanted to take all his bad hot takes out in the format of a horror book that actually didn't have any horror. This is definitely going to be one of my least favorite books of the year. It is so bad. And now I don't know if I want to read any Matt Shaw, even though the extreme horror people are telling me that he's good and I need to read him. But like, this put a really bad taste in my mouth. So if you like anything by Matt Shaw, leave a recommendation in the comments. Maybe this is an outlier, I don't know, but I definitely don't recommend this one. Moving on to my 2.5 star book that I read this month, we have Tears of Tess by Pepper Winters, and this is a dark romance about a girl who falls in love with her kidnapper. We're following Tess and her boyfriend as they go on a trip to Mexico. They are originally from Australia. Like, this is an Australian book, and I did not know that. But yeah, they're from Australia. It's not set in Australia though, because they're on a destination, you know, vacation vibes. So they're in Mexico, and Tess gets human trafficked.
Literally.
She gets stolen and put into the sex trade. And we read about that. It's on page. So if that's triggering to you, definitely don't read this. But again, this is a dark romance. So yeah. And we follow her as she gets kidnapped and sold to this man. And that is where the romance begins. She has this like Stockholm syndrome feeling for the man that she was sold to, and she ends up getting into some things with him, and some emotions get involved, and this whole wild adventure unfolds from there. I just think this book was average though. I really liked the first maybe like 30%, like seeing our main character just like on this blissful vacation, and then all of a sudden she's like thrown into this harsh reality of like, you were a stupid tourist and you weren't careful, and now you are in the sex trade. Like, I thought that was terrifying. It was really effective thriller / horror writing. But once the romance started up, you lost me. You really lost me with this one. I don't know. I don't know. I just did not think this man was all that in a bag of chips the way that she did. She's like,
Oh, he's not like the other sex traffickers.
and I'm like, but he's a sex trafficker. Like, I don't know. I guess that's the point of dark romance. And I feel like this is always my complaint with dark romance is like, the relationship is toxic and fucked up and we should not be romanticizing this. But like, that's the point of the genre. So maybe the genre isn't for me, but I've read things in the genre that I've liked. So I don't know. I'm in a weird place with dark romance right now. This one just wasn't it for me. I thought it was extremely, extremely average, which is why I rated it that 2.5 star rating, right down the middle. I also had some issues with Tess's character. Like, our main character should be a nice person that we want to follow, that we want to be inside her head, and I did not like her. I thought she was really dumb, really naive, kind of a bitch. Like, she was judging the other women around her and like had some slut-shaming language, which I did not like. That just rubbed me the wrong way. And yeah, I just did not click with this book. I think it's okay. I think there are people out there that could definitely enjoy this. And I thought the thrills were there. I also liked the twists as well. But the overall plot and the romance just, it really knocked it down for me. Next up, we have my 3.5 star book, which is My Summer Darlings by May Cobb. You guys probably saw this in that same summer thriller, new release reading vlog, blah, 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 whatever. I will go ahead and link that one above and below in case you missed it and you want my full thoughts on a lot of the books that I'm going to be talking about in this video. But basically, this is a domestic thriller, and we follow this group of 3 women, and they're like BFFs, and they live in this small little Texas town outside of Dallas, and they're like the type of gossipy ladies that look out their window and they're like in all the drama. And suddenly this new man moves to town, and all 3 of them become obsessed with him. They don't know that the other friends in the group are obsessed with him. So they all think like,
Oh, he's all mine.
but the gag is they're all wrapped up in this like salacious, dramatic plot where things end up blowing up and going off the rails. It is crazy. I really enjoyed the majority of this book. It was so fast paced, so easy to read. It felt like Southern Big Little Lies, which I love that, just like drama. It's like watching bad reality TV is what reading this book felt like. But the end really took it from a 4 star to a 3.5. The 0.5 star that it lost was because of the epilogue. I feel like I knew what May Cobb was trying to do, and it just didn't work for me. Next, let's talk about my 4-star book, which is Wicked Beauty by Katie Robert, and this book is legitimately actually destroyed. It literally melted. I was reading it in the pool, and I put it on like the side of the pool.
And it melted.
The sun was so hot, literally this thing melted, and all the glue in the book that was holding it together just was liquid on the side of the pool. So she's a little battered and busted, but it's okay. I still love her. I really loved this book. This is the 3rd edition in the Dark Olympus series by Katie Robert, obviously. And these are all Greek mythology retelling erotica romance books. They have a little bit of urban fantasy, a little bit of like Hunger Games vibes in this one specifically, but they also have romance plots. And in Wicked Beauty, it is a retelling of kind of like something adjacent to the Trojan War, because our three main characters are Helen of Troy, Achilles, and Patroclus. So this is a romance with LGBT and polyamory rep, which I love to see. I had never read a polyamory rep romance before, and I loved reading this one. It was so good. Achilles and Patroclus have this like established romance, and like they're in a relationship from the beginning, and their eyes are just like kind of both drawn to Helen, and when she joins the mix, it was so fun to read about. And not only was the smut and the romance so fun and so sweet, but I actually really enjoyed the fantasy plot. Like I said, it was giving like Hunger Games vibes. They had all these trials, and they were all competing in these like trials, and people were getting eliminated, and it was like the last one standing, the last one alive wins. Oh my gosh, I loved it. I loved it. This was such a, I want to say guilty pleasure, but it was just so good. It wasn't a 5-star, but there's nothing that I didn't like about it. Moving on to my 4.5-star books that I read in the month of June. First of all, we have Notes on Your Sudden Disappearance by Ashley Esbach.
Spock. I don't know. Her name will be here.
And I really enjoyed this one. I went in thinking it was a mystery thriller. It definitely is not. It is a historical fiction that takes place in the 90s and early 2000s. We follow our main character as she loses her sister. That is the sudden disappearance. And it's not a mystery what happened to her sister. We know on page what happened to her. And the story is basically a contemporary family drama that digs into the trauma of losing a sister and a daughter, and how that can affect the family and everyone around. It was so well written. It was slower paced and more character driven, but I tend to really love those books if they're done well. And the writing in this was just gorgeous. The narrative style was beautiful, and I really loved all the 90s references and nostalgia. Some of like the community pool scenes were giving me Stranger Things season 3, like Billy by the pool vibes, and that is what I needed. Obviously, if you've been following me on Instagram, you know.
Anyway.
It just wasn't quite a 5-star because I wanted a little bow on the ending. And I know that in reality, it's not a bow on it story, but I just wanted that. I needed that. After spending so long with these characters and getting to know them so deeply, I felt like I needed some closure at the end. And the fact that I didn't get it, I know it's like a metaphor. It's like the family didn't get it either, but like, it still annoyed me. And my other 4.5-star book is We Can Never Leave This Place by Eric LaRocca. And the author actually sent this to me. Thank you so much, Eric, for sending me your book. I absolutely love it. This one is weird. Honestly, it's a little bit weirder than his previous books, which I love those, and those go completely off the rails, which is the type of horror that I like. But this one had some interesting, like, speculative fantasy elements that I don't think his other books have, but I think if you enjoyed his other books, you will still enjoy this one. The whole thing is basically like a huge allegory for family trauma, intergenerational trauma, through the lens of this family that we're following as they're experiencing the end of the world, basically. It's like this apocalypse is coming, it's on the horizon, and we see how really it's mostly the mother and the daughter interact, and how the mom's stuff becomes the girl's stuff. And I just really love discussions of mental health and trauma. Obviously, I do trauma work every day with my clients, so that is something very close to my heart, and I love the way that this spoke about it in, I feel like, an approachable way, because it wasn't all just like, here is the trauma that needs to be addressed. It was through this speculative horror that was really haunting and creepy and just like gave me chills up the back of my spine. And then there are also these like disturbing fantasy elements, which I don't even want to give away what they are because I need you to just go in blind and be completely shocked by them. But this book was so good. It was a little tiny bit short for me, which was the only reason I gave it 4.5 instead of 5 stars. I wish we could have dug in maybe just a little bit more to our main character, her past, maybe what things were like before the apocalyptic world vibes set in. I would have liked more of that, but for what it is so great. And a 4.5 is nothing to, be mad about. I think everyone should pick up this book, especially if you picked up You've Lost a Lot of Blood, which I recommended a couple months ago, and you like that one. You're gonna love this one. And finally, we are at the point where I get to talk about my 5-star books, my favorites of the month, and there are lots of them. I will just go ahead and start with my one reread that I had this month. I read Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter with my patrons because it was our June book club pick. We read my favorite book for my birthday month, and it was so fun. Oh my God, the live show was amazing. If you didn't know, I have one of my queens from my top tier on Patreon co-host the book club live show with me every single month, and our bestie Ruth co-hosted the Pretty Girl show with me, and it was just so wonderful. We were on for almost 2 hours discussing and getting amazing recommendations from Ruth. So that was so fun. And if you want to join in for our July discussion and our July pick, we are reading The Violence by Delilah S. Dawson. So I will link my Patreon as always down below if you want to join us. We always have such a fun time. So I got to reread my favorite book this month, and obviously it was a 5-star. I just have absolutely nothing bad to say about this book. I've raved about it enough, but it's perfect. It's perfect. It's the best thriller ever written. There's so much to it, and discussing it with my girlies, I feel like I have a new appreciation for it because there's so much more that I didn't even catch on my reread that other people were catching, that I was like, oh my God, you guys are blowing my mind. I just love it. It's perfect. Period. The end. Best book of all time. One of the books that I completed this month was I'll just show it to you. It's giving coffee table book vibes. It's not a lot of words, but there were little journaling places, you know what I mean? Ta-da-da-da-da. It's a motivational journal, basically. Yeah, it's just a motivational journal. I don't know what else to tell you. There's no plot here. It's just kind of self-help vibes, and I don't like just straight up self-help books. I would rather have me putting effort in, so I like a motivational journal better. And do it for yourself. This one I really liked. I would recommend it. 5 stars. I got a lot out of it. I feel like it was definitely worth the money. Way worth the money than compared to a dumbass self-help book. So if you're looking for something like this, I recommend this one. Another 5-star book that I read this month, also featured in my vlog, was One of the Girls by Lucy Clark. And this one totally surprised me. I went into this book not having high expectations at all. I was like, okay, this will be a fun little trashy summer thriller and I'll be done with it. It was not that. It was actually so good. We are following this hen party of this bride and her little bridesmaids as they go on a destination bridesmaids trip, which it's a British thriller, so they call it a hen party, to Greece. And there's weird dynamics within the group of girls. So if you like fucked up friendships, obsession, low-key toxic female friendships, I think you will really like this book. There's also wonderful LGBT rep in here, and I love to see that in a traditionally published thriller. The vibes were just phenomenal. I told my patrons on live stream, I was like, y'all, I could read this book if it didn't have any plot at all. Just the descriptions were giving me life. In Greece, what they were eating, what they were wearing, where they went, the weather, oh my God. It was just if you want to go on a Grecian vacation, pick up this book and you're done. You're good. And the thriller plot was also really effective. I really liked the character dynamics and the weird way that everybody fit together, and the twists were crazy. I did see one of them kind of coming, but it didn't bother me. It was done in a way where I was like, oh my God, I knew it. And it was like a vindicating kind of thing instead of feeling boring and predictable. So if you're a fan of summer thrillers, definitely give this one a shot. Do not underestimate her like I did. Next up, we have the nonfiction that I read this month, which is American Kingpin by Nick Bilton. Y'all, the way this book got me obsessed with the dark web, the way that I forced Cameron to watch so many things about the dark web after I finished this book, because it is just so fucking wild to me that this happened. As I was reading, I was like, there's no way this is not fiction. Like, this is literally made up.
It's not.
We are following the guy who literally created the Silk Road on the dark web. And if you don't know what the Silk Road is, it's basically an illegal marketplace, which is referred to in pop culture as like the Amazon.com for drugs. You could literally go on there and purchase guns, drugs, organs, hitmen, add to cart, thank you, check out, and it's done. Like, hello? The fact that this happened and like went on for so long is crazy to me. Also, just hearing like about the guy who started it and his beliefs and his upbringing and like the motivation for it was just wild. I loved hearing about this story, and it read like a thriller. Like, this is not like a boring nonfiction. This kept me on the edge of my seat. I was tearing through the pages because I had to know how this man was caught, what happened, how he evaded the FBI for so long. And it also goes into the corruption of the officers that are involved in the case, and that was crazy. I mean, it's not crazy the officers are corrupt. We fucking know that happens all the time. But just the lengths that these people will go to thinking they're not gonna get caught. Oh my God, it's so funny. The fact that all this is real, I literally just can't believe it. And the fact that I loved a nonfiction so much and it read so much like a thriller, like a fiction book. It was that entertaining.
I just can't believe this is real. Y'all, I cannot believe this is real. This is crazy.
Also, the guy that this story is about, the creator of the Silk Road, literally grew up 20 minutes away from my house. Huh? So all the locations that they were talking about, I am familiar with. I've been there. Like, everything that happened in Austin, I was like, I went there last week. His girlfriend, I literally know where she lives. Like, oh my God. It's crazy. It's wild. I feel like if you're a Texan, if you're a Texan girl like me, you will be shook by this. The fact that like just somebody so wild could be right down the hall. Terrifying, crazy. Something in my brain, like, it doesn't even want me to acknowledge that this is even a real thing that happened. But we watched a ton of documentaries on it, and like, it's definitely a thing. I would say the main documentary about the situation though sucks. I would recommend the fictionalization of this story or just the general documentaries about the dark web over the documentary about the American Kingpin situation, because it's really horribly biased and just like they ignore a lot of facts, and yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Next up, we have another one of my most anticipated books of the year, Family of Liars by E. Lockhart. And this was actually the prequel to one of my favorite books of all time, We Were Liars. So I don't want to give a synopsis because it just completely spoils We Were Liars. Like, definitely don't read this if you haven't read that one, but also, why haven't you read that one? It's one of my favorite books of literally all time. My best friend in high school wrote a musical based on it. Like, it's that good. And this kind of goes into the story of the older generation. So the main character in We Were Liars, we're following her mom and all of her siblings and her cousins as they grew up going and spending their summers in this Martha's Vineyard estate. It's like East Coast beach, old money vibes, and it's also set in like the 70s, 80s times. Oh my God, it is so good. The vibes are just so good. There is fucked up family dynamics in here. There's trauma in here. There's grief in here. There's love in here. There is like abusive ? Relationship rep in here, but it's not like scary abusive rep. It's like, you just feel very understood when you've read this. It's like, as a woman, if you read this, you're gonna be like, yeah, I've experienced that type of situation where I was like gaslit and just like emotionally put through the fucking ringer, and at the end of the day, the guy's like,
what did I do? What? I abuse you? I ain't know that.
Like, that is literally this book. Like it makes you feel so understood if you've been in that situation. There's also just a lot of interesting like family dynamic things of like how old money families operate, and there's a lot of rich people drama and just like the things there, the vibes of like rich people drama. If you like that, you will like this. It is very, very summery, and I just can't find one complaint about it. It feels so good to rave about books that I love, especially when I was anticipating that one for literally years since I was in high school. And the last book, maybe my favorite 5-star, other than Pretty Girls, obviously, that I read this month is We Were Never Here by Andrea Bartz. And this book was crazy. I've had this book sitting around for quite a little bit now. It was an old book of the month pick, like maybe last year, maybe the year before, I don't know. But it is a thriller, again, following the like toxic dynamics of female friendship that borders on obsession. And we follow these two long distance best friends as they meet up every single year to go on their yearly vacation. But one year on their vacation, something goes totally wrong, and they end up actually having to kill a guy in self-defense. So they get rid of the body and they're like, you know, we were never here. Let's not talk about it ever. Goodbye. They meet up the next year for their trip. One girl, understandably, is like traumatized, still not over what happened last year on the vacation, constantly paranoid and just anxious out of her mind because, yeah, that would happen if you kill somebody. And the other best friend is like, she doesn't seem that bothered by it. And our main character starts to question, was it an accident? Was it self-defense after all? And this book just goes completely off the rails. I feel like it had the perfect mix of everything that I love, which was those like fucked up dynamics, the weird trauma shit going on that the book dives into. Good summer vacation vibes. I read this book in the pool and it was the perfect place to read it. Interesting characters that really are written with depth. Great twist that I did not see coming. And a plot that just gets wilder and wilder and wilder as you read. It was so crazy, so fast paced. Perfect for summer. This is one that if you've been overlooking it on Book of the Month, add it as an add-on immediately. You have to read it. It's so crazy. I can't believe more people aren't talking about this book. All right, those are all of the books that I read in the month of June. Thank you guys so much for watching and sticking with me. If you made it all the way through the video to this point, go ahead and leave me a heart emoji in the comments below. I don't care what heart, your favorite heart, minus the one with the little sparkles, so you can leave me that one if you really love me. And don't forget to like this video if you liked it, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring. Again, that link will be down below for you guys to check out. And go to therapy and read a book this week. I will see you guys in my next video.